Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Here we go. Welcome to episode number 5 of the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, which is a leadership and networking organization for professional women. The podcast features female entrepreneurs and leaders and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. With me today is Emma Passe Fox. She's the Chief Operating Officer of ePowered Benefits. And in addition to being a health insurance broker, Emma is also an empowerment coach who founded an organization called Empowered Leadership. Our paths crossed earlier this year through our connections in the health insurance industry, and I'm excited to have her on as a guest. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
So I want to get into these questions because I'm super excited to talk to you about these things. I asked you in our pre-work about your biggest professional accomplishment, and you told me it was moving into your non-traditional consulting role and taking the big leap into the unknown to do something somewhat unpopular. So Tell me about that. Tell me why you chose that, why it's unpopular, and why it's so important to you.
You know, it's becoming less unpopular. I will give you that. But when I decided to make this move, I had been an insurance carrier representative, sales rep, account executive for the bulk of my career. And I just felt like the strategy that's involved in consulting was really where I belonged. But regular consulting, I tried my hand at it very, very briefly. And I think I just aligned with not the right agency for me at the time. And so it just stuck in the back of my mind, and I really wanted to do something different because as a health insurance carrier executive, I found that I was delivering sort of the same news every single time I met with a client. And most of my fellow consultants out there know that when you meet with an insurance carrier representative, we usually have bad news. And I really wanted to change that. I really wanted to come up with a way to start delivering something that was positive and gave positive anticipation to employers. And so I partnered with another consultant in our industry that's pretty well known and took the leap. And the reason it was so scary is because it really tested my reputation, of which I felt was really good up until that point. But doing something that comes across a little unpopular when the messaging that you have to put out there is a little bit contrary to how people normally do things. And it kind of incites that feeling that people need to change. And trying to find a way to do that where it's something that people can absorb positively instead of negatively can be a really difficult message to deliver. So I try really, really hard to take that non-traditional stance and try more to encourage people to come with me instead of saying, hey, you're doing something wrong, you should follow me. I much prefer coming at it as, here's what I'm doing, and I would love for you to join me on this mission of mine. But it's still relatively unpopular of an opinion just because the system is set up to work a certain way, and we've all grown up in it. You've grown up in it. A lot of our acquaintances in Align Women and other organizations have grown up knowing how to do things a certain way. And when you kind of buck that ideal, it comes across a little pretentious sometimes, but I hope people don't feel that way about me.
I totally understand what you're saying, and I appreciate the delicacy and the heart-centered approach that you have. It is the health insurance industry is super complicated, and it's super complicated from state to state. And I am in Southern California. We're in a market that is super unique and super restricted. We've got a lot of HMO participation that other places in the country don't. We've got Kaiser in our market. We've got CalChoice in our market that doesn't exist in other places. And our insurance agent license restricts us from doing fee-based things that consultants in other states can do. And sometimes I get my back up a little bit when I hear people in other states going, everybody doing it the old way is doing it wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I would love to do some of this new stuff, but I can't always. And so I appreciate that you that you understand the difficult position that you're in. And I also appreciate very much that you are looking for new ways to approach things, because we need that. We need new voices. We need new ideas. We need outside of the box thinkers. This train is running away from us no matter what we do. So we might as well find new ways to approach it. So I appreciate that you're doing that. For people who aren't familiar with employee benefits in the health insurance industry, give me an example, whether it's a real client example or sort of an ideal client example of the alternative approach that you take, and what that looks like from an employer perspective. What are you bringing that might be different from what they're used to seeing?
Sure. So the agency that I work for, ePowered Benefits, only works with self-funded employers. They don't necessarily have to be large, but they do have to be self-funded. And really what we do is remove a provider network. That's essentially at the base of everything that we do. We take away the network. But when you take away the network, you have to replace it with some kind of pricing mechanism so that providers can get paid and claims can get adjudicated. And so the backbone of our plans have reference-based pricing or something similar. But what I really love to do is the strategic portions of that, like working directly with providers, whether that's for direct primary care in the smaller group market, which I've started to move more towards now, or direct contracting with facilities, or getting people to engage in chasing quality instead of cost. There's a lot of data around the industry, and particularly in our agency, where we can track that higher quality care almost always results in lower costs. And so if we try to steer people into quality, not only do they have a better outcome, but we can control the cost for the employer too. But I think where some of the tension comes from in the industry is there are people out there that are on platforms that are messaging this as the way to do it. But I'm actually not sure that is the way to do it. I think that's the way that we have in place right now, that works, right? When we take away the network, we have to have something. But to your point, there are so many idiosyncrasies all over the country, and we need to serve those. We need to serve every state. And so I believe people like you in California, my friend Dawn McFarland, my friend David Mordo out east, we need those people. I can't do that. If someone came to me and said, could you help me with a fully insured small group? I'd go, I have no idea where to start. I don't know. So my message is really, yes, I'm doing something different, but I need other partners in my industry to collaborate with me on the stuff I don't know how to do. So if we can all kind of come together, a little kumbaya, I know that sounds very West Coast, but that's what I'm really chasing after, is to bring my opinion and your opinion and everyone else's, and bring those corners together to some kind of central collaboration point.
I love it. So let's shift gears a little and talk about your other organization, which is Empowered Leadership. Tell me about what you are doing, what kind of clients you're serving, and what kind of change you are looking to make in the world with that organization.
This is a bit of a passion project of mine. So I've been in the industry for a long time, and I won't get too far on my soapbox, but I'm sure you are familiar with how women are generally regarded and treated in the industry. I mean, I've grown up in the industry. It used to be very male dominated. And for a long time, I felt like I was kind of preordained to be put in this little spot, and that's where I belonged. And then as I kind of broke out of that a little bit, I realized that it's well within my power to put myself wherever I feel I belong instead. And actually, I was at a conference very early in 2019, and I was kind of considering joining an organization. It's like a membership organization for the industry. And I remember asking the person in charge, I said, what's required to join this, elite organization? And that person said, a title and a big check. And I was so put off by it. I felt like that's not how we should be coming together. If we're going to all come together to collaborate and make a difference, I don't think me having a certain amount of money or me having a certain title should have anything to do with it. And arguably, leadership actually happens at some of the lower titles. It's the sales support specialists, it's the associates, it's the admin people that get all of those big name titles to do what they need to do day in and day out. And so I started getting a little frustrated with going to these conferences and feeling like I had to join this elite group, but in order to do so, I had to pay a certain amount. And then I noticed in some of those same environments, there were tracks, especially for women. And I love bringing a whole bunch of strong women together. But what I noticed was while women are here not complaining, but making a point to say that we belong in the same arena as a man in this industry. But at the same time, we segregate ourselves into these groups where it's just us and we exclude men as a result. So empowered leadership came about just to help people find their confidence and their place among other groups, whether that's women in a male dominated group, whether that's someone in minority leadership in a group of majority leadership positions. So the community is just set up to get people to connect, to share their strengths and what motivates them, and to inspire other people to do the same.
That's so powerful. And I so appreciate you relating the experience that you had. I have similar stories that led to the creation of Aligned Women. And be careful with your passion project, because I tell you, if it gains enough momentum, it just might roll over everything else that you're doing, which has been my experience so far. I tell me how you are currently working with clients for empowered leadership. Are you working with individuals? Are you working with businesses? And how do you deliver the consulting that you're doing?
So on the empowered leadership portion of my life, it hasn't taken as much of a front row seat yet, and I'm kind of thankful for that. But every Saturday and Sunday, I am scheduled to meet with the women that I have chosen that inspire me. So it's really about me finding people in this community that have something to contribute, and I want to try to meet them wherever they're at. So every Saturday and Sunday, I take an hour on Saturday morning, an hour on Sunday morning, and I just check in with my women. And if I remember that there's something that they're going through or something that happened, or I want to tell them something I noticed about them or their activity this week that I really wanted to congratulate them on. So it's all positivity, and it's all genuine. It has to be genuine. You know, I feel like we complement each other. There's not a lot of substance to it, but you can always, always, always find something to compliment someone on if you're paying attention. And so I work with about a dozen women now, and we check in every weekend, and it's just an exchange of how was your week? What did you struggle with this week? And how can I help you? Do I have an experience that we can share, and I can tell you what I did? And at the same time, I reach out to them and go, you know what? I've had a heck of a Friday. I really need your advice. I really need your support. What would you do if you were me? And, you know, sometimes it's just a case of me talking it out or them talking it out. And usually they come to their own conclusion all by themselves. It's just that conversation that incites it in them. So we do that every Saturday, every Sunday, and people have different goals. Some people want to emerge in leadership. Some people want to join an organization. There's a couple people who want to learn how to speak publicly, which, you know, is a big fear for a lot of people. Some people just want to improve their fitness. It goes from end to end.
Yeah. There's so many things I could say about that. You and I have so many more conversations.
We will.
So tell me what 2020 looks like for you. Tell me where empowered leadership is going. What's your vision for that? And tell me what other big things you have planned for the new year.
So I do have a lot of big things planned for 2020, and I'm really excited. I have been in the public speaking circuit for a while, and I don't always have time to dedicate to it what I really want to. But there's been one thing that I've really, really wanted to do, and that was to speak about a motivational topic that really engaged people in being more empowered as a woman and as a leader. And so my biggest accomplishment so far is going to be at the California Association of Health Underwriters. Their Women's Leadership Summit is coming up at the end of March. And I am thrilled to be one of their keynote speakers under their empowerment session. And I have been working on this for a while. So I don't usually get nervous, but I'm nervous about this one. It's very personal. It's me sharing a lot of how I grew up and how I came to be the woman I am today, which is not all roses and rainbows. And it asks people to do the same, to take a look back on their past and really embrace some of those painful growth points, knowing that after every one of those lows, always comes a high, always. And I really learned a lot from charting that out. In the last year of my life, going through some personal things, I learned that if I could chart out my lifeline, my highs, my lows, and kind of pinpoint where I found the most growth, I can tell you that most of it came from my failures. Most of it came from those really painful moments where I had a choice to make that was not an easy one. And we're going to talk about that on stage in Vegas. And I am hopeful that there's going to be a huge beaming crowd of women. I want people to cry. I want them to laugh. I want them to come hug me afterwards. I have a few other speaking gigs coming up in 2020. The agency is booming. We're growing like crazy. We're hiring new people. Empowered leadership is taking off. We're getting more traction there too. But women's leadership is probably the big thing on my agenda coming up.
Well, I will be one of the people in the audience that is probably laughing and crying and definitely hugging after. And I will also be speaking in the empowerment section. So you and I will almost be sharing the stage. And I can tell you from my experience last year, I, like you, wanted to step into public speaking more. And probably like you, I've done a million open enrollment meetings. I am totally comfortable standing in front of a room of 1,000 people. But my presentations have always been insurance-based or social media-based. They've always been technical. I've spoken at national conferences, but they've always been technical presentations. And I did what you did, and I chose, when I spoke last year at Women's Leadership Summit, to do it on a very personal topic, including a giant slide of pages from my journal where I did a self-worth exercise. Yeah, I threw down. And it was an incredible experience. And so I am sure that what you are going to bring to this event is going to be wonderful and delightful and uplifting, and will give people a whole new way to get to know you. And it's such a supportive environment of women, not just in the insurance industry, but any women who are interested in empowerment and leadership and self-development. So it's going to be a fantastic event. And I will be sure when we post the show notes to include a link to the registration for that event so that people who watch the podcast can get more information.
That would be wonderful. I'm so excited to see you speak. I am really pumped about this one.
It's going to be so much fun. So let's dig down a little on that in that spirit. I asked you about a hard lesson you've had to learn, and your answer I really loved and related to was vulnerability. So what has the learning process been like for you when it comes to vulnerability, and did you have to, and I am kind of assuming the answer is yes, unlearn some coping skills that you learned when you were growing up in order to be vulnerable?
Yes, I did. So if for those women that come to women's leadership, they'll find out a whole lot about that subject, about me, and hopefully about themselves. But I grew up in a very self-sufficient environment since I was a kid, and I learned very quickly to kind of shake it off and move forward, shake it off, move forward. But I think what that led me to most of my adult life is to compartmentalize things that were really important that I should have gone through and I avoided instead. And so I actually met someone a couple of years ago, now about a year and a half ago, who I do a lot of business with, is a great partner of mine and a great friend of mine, who really taught me that it is so okay to be vulnerable. And not only is it okay, but it kind of gives you this glimpse of yourself that helps you to move on and move forward a little bit more. And with the support of a few people, of just letting me be sad when I want to be sad. I recently went through a divorce. You and I talked about that really briefly before we started. And I shared with you, I didn't know how the heck I was going to be a single woman at the start of this year. And you know what? Just being able to ask for help, being able to say, this is really hard, and not being ashamed of it or be embarrassed of it. And I've had people from all over the country call me and say, are you okay? And instead of just saying, I'm fine, sometimes I can say, I'm not doing okay today. Can we talk about it? And I can't tell you how much closer my friendships have become, how much closer I am with myself. I'm so much more comfortable with who I am because people have allowed me be okay, to be who I am and to accept it. And not only that, but my clients really respect me a lot more, and they really trust me a lot more because I'm more relatable. I can say, this is tough, let's work through this together, instead of always pretending like I got this, I've got it figured out, because most of the time I don't. I don't got it at all. I'm trying to figure it out like everybody else. So it's been such an important lesson, and I hope that more women will kind of take off that armor that we're so used to putting on and just say, I'm not okay today, but I'm going to work through it. I'll learn something from it, and I'll be okay tomorrow.
And of course, what you do when you allow yourself to do that is give other people around you permission to do that as well. So there is a pay it forward aspect to being vulnerable. And I am a huge fan of Brene Brown and all the work that she does on vulnerability. And what you're saying reminds me of some of the great TED Talks that she has about that subject. So I'm glad you're going to be sharing that, because I do believe there's not only is there value in it in just being relatable, but it also, as you alluded to, allows you to maybe put some things down that you've been carrying around. And I think you and I relate to each other well, because I came from a childhood that I would not wish on anybody. And it took me a while to put those things down too. I mean, that's a lifetime of work. I can't ever claim I'm done with that. But yeah, being able to show that allows other people to see that it's okay and feel safe, which
Absolutely.
is really, I think, what we all want. We all want to feel like we're part of the tribe, and we're not going to get excommunicated if we show a little vulnerability.
I agree.
You shared one other thing with me that I think is super relatable for women. You told me that you still struggle with whether or not you're doing enough or doing the right thing or on the right path. And when you're feeling those things, which I can totally relate to on a daily basis, how do you work through them? What kind of tools do you use that help you that help you work through that, instead of just saying, you're wrong, you're silly, that's ridiculous, you shouldn't be feeling that way? How do you nurture yourself when you're going through that process and take care of yourself and work through those feelings?
I think what some people forget is when you're working in sort of an unpopular or non-traditional space, there's a lot of criticism that comes with it. People always have an opinion, always. And I post a lot on LinkedIn about what I do. It's something that I'm passionate about. It's very mission driven for me. And I think people forget very quickly that some of that negativity that gets posted very publicly can really affect someone. None of us are immune. We can't just, read it and be okay, right? It comes to that same vulnerability that crops up. It's difficult. It's difficult to be in the spotlight. It's difficult to be criticized. It's a hard, harsh reality. And I think people forget that there's a human being on the other side of it. And so sometimes I feel like that criticism gets under my skin. It makes me feel like, am I really doing the right? If other people feel this way about me and my opinion, am I really doing the right thing? And sometimes I feel like it's opposite. It's not that I'm not enough. It's that I'm a little too much for some people sometimes, right? I feel like I can never win. But at the end of the day, when I sit down with my girlfriends and I'm having a glass of wine, or if I send one of those text messages on Saturday, I know there's a whole host of people that, whether they agree with my business stance or not, they're going to tell me to continue to follow what it is I believe is the right thing to do and what really gets me up in the morning and settles me down at night. And I think my support system, my community, my business partner, they've all got my back, and I feel like I can keep plugging along, even in that criticism, even in that harsh environment every now and then. But I still do struggle, because here's the thing: doing the right thing is almost always the harder choice to make, right? Doing the wrong thing is always easy. I teach a class on ethics for the Nahuas organization, and I always say, like, the easier path is always doing the wrong thing. But the problem with that is the consequence that you have to deal with later, right? It's always harder to do the right thing. So I just try to keep that central. Even when I feel like I'm not enough, I just kind of remind myself, am I doing what is right for me? And if the answer is yes, then we just forge forward. We send out a few text messages to the empowered community, and we move on with our day.
So community support is a big part of that. And it sounds also like personally and professionally holding the vision. And I'm sure that knowing your business partner, knowing David, that it's really valuable that the two of you can remind each other of what the vision is if you're feeling a little buffeted by the criticism out there, and sort of realign with what that vision is so that you can move forward. But yeah, especially if you're doing something new, where there aren't a lot of people who share the vision because you're creating the vision as you go.
Right.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. And, he takes it on the chin a lot more than I do. I have a little bit of a softer approach, and
You
I do. But, the goal is really the same. It's people. It's all around people. It's all about the human interaction, the human touch. How can we get people the very best result and the very best outcome? And some of us, like David, come at it from a little bit more of an aggressive standpoint based on his experience, right? Based on the things that hurt him and the criticism that he gets. And I come from it of a place of like kumbaya love. I'm West Coast through and through. Like, I'll hug anybody. We'll hug it out kind of thing.
Right.
But it's hard, being on a platform like that. No matter who you are, how you come at it, it comes with a lot of criticism that really seeps into your life. So I hope people know that when I'm out there fighting the good fight, I'm still just a woman.
Yes, and a human being who has feelings, and who has insecurities, and who, totally. Well, you're welcome to put me on that list of people to be your cheerleader if you need one.
Thank you so much. I so will. I'm gonna take you up on that.
So I give you the opportunity to ask me a question, which is fun. I like to turn the tables. And your question to me was, what do you love most about yourself and why? That's a really good one. And I have three different words that all apply to the same thing, and it probably won't be surprising based on our conversation thus far. I love my resiliency, and I love my adaptability, and I love that I am solution-based. And I saw a little glimpse of that yesterday. I was in infamous LA traffic, and I was behind someone who was behind someone that was doing something that the second car didn't like, and I was the third car, and the second car was just honking and honking and honking, and I just pulled into the other lane and went by. And I thought, that's a really good example of how I approach problems. I don't do a lot of yelling and complaining and screaming and angsty, why is my life so hard? I immediately go to, how can I find a solution to this problem? And right. I like that about myself. I had to build that. That was a survival skill at the beginning. Sometimes survival skills become really good business skills. And then you have to be real careful that you're not using them defensively in business. That's been a really interesting life lesson for me, that some of the things that I've developed as protections are socially rewarded, but that doesn't necessarily mean I should still be holding that armor up. So resiliency and adaptability are my two of my favorite qualities, and super good ones for the industry that we're in, especially given the things that you were just talking about.
I love that so much. If you can help me work on my adaptability, I would be forever in your debt. I really would.
Yeah, that's when some of the industry magazines ask, with new people coming into the industry, what's the number one skill you think they should have? Adaptability is always my answer, because it's going to keep changing. It changes at the national level, it changes at the state level, it changes at the carrier level, and we are always in reaction to those things, or very often in reaction to those things. So
you are so right.
Yeah, adaptability is a good one. So where can people find you if they would like to connect with you for either of your business projects?
Most people can just reach me via LinkedIn. I can be emailed at efox@epowerbenefits.com. Most people have my cell phone. It's posted on LinkedIn. I take calls, whenever. But LinkedIn is probably where people get the most traction. Shoot me a message. I would love to get more features for the empowered leadership community. And I hope that we can keep growing this. I just want to tell you, I'm going to throw a curveball out to you, but I am so proud of the movement that you've created, Amy. It has been so fun to watch it grow in such a short period of time, and your dedication to it is so admirable. And I was thrilled that you asked me to do this. So thank you. And I just want to let you know, you are inspiring people of every walk.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am fueled by the feedback that I'm getting and the momentum that's built, and I am in awe of the impact, and feel very responsible for moving this forward, because so many people have reached out and said we need a different way of doing what we're doing. Women want a different way of connecting and a different way of networking than sort of the traditional. And my experience there is very similar to the experience you were describing in the insurance industry, and what motivated you to start your organization. So I think we're all hearing the call, and not only are we hearing it, but we are empowered to take action. And that's super exciting to watch. And I am just as much in support of what you're doing, and so excited that you were willing to come on the podcast. So I'm going to close out with that. So thank you everyone so much for joining me on the Aligned Women podcast today. And thank you, Emma Passe Fox, for being episode number 6. And look for more episodes with more amazing women at alignedwomenpodcast.com. Thanks so much, Emma.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks for listening to the Aligned Women podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignedwomenpodcast.com, and visit alignedwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Aligned Women podcast.